One of the headlines in the Adirondack Daily Enterprise this past week was that after more than 2 decades, Peter Crowley is leaving the newspaper. Crowley began as a reporter at the Enterprise in 2000 and has been managing editor since 2004. Peter was a regular panelist here on Mountain Lake Journal on our Reporters Roundtable. Peter also joined us as a panelist in 2018 for our debate among the 3 candidates who ran for the New York 21 congressional seat. He's leaving the newspaper to go back to college to earn a master's degree in education from SUNY Potsdam to teach high school or middle school English. And Peter Crowley joins us now. Welcome, it's good to see you.
Thank you, Tom.
You really never set out to be a newspaper editor, did you? You thought about being a teacher. Your parents were both teachers. 2 brothers were teachers. And was that really what you intended to do when you graduated from college eventually?
I didn't. Yes, it was. To a certain degree, I didn't really know what else to do with an English major. But I was planning, but I wasn't ready to go back to school yet. I wanted to travel around the country a little bit, do some other jobs, do some other things. And so I ended up moving to the Adirondacks, which is a place I had loved my whole life. I've been coming to Saranac Lake specifically my whole life because my grandparents lived there. So I thought, I'd like ideally to have some job in the woods or something outdoors related. And I wasn't sure what that was. I was very vague at that time on what I wanted to do. But I did have in the back of my mind that they had a little newspaper, and I knew I didn't have qualifications to work at a newspaper, really. I'd done a little bit in college. My last year of college, I was the arts editor of our very small little newspaper. And I caught the bug for sure, but I didn't have journalism education, and I had not much experience. But I thought if it's a small enough paper, and Saranac Lake's paper is small, pretty small, I might be able to get in the door.
And it took a couple of tries.
It took 3rd try.
What were those first few years like?
I really fell into it. I really felt, oh, this is what I'm doing. And it was hard work, but it was something new every day. I was meeting new people every day and going new places every day. And that's a great thing to have for a job.
You took a bit of a break in 2002.
We ended up going out to California. It's a small daily there, and that was great. That was a new experience. I was on the public safety beat, so cops and fire and courts, and it was a good paper. It was high standards. So I really had to step up my game, which was great training.
Where in California was that?
Gilroy, California, which is a bit south of San Jose.
Was it the Adirondacks that called you? Was it that your grandparents were still here and you wanted to come back and be close to family? What was it that brought you in 2004 back to the Adirondacks?
Those 2 things, the Adirondacks and my grandparents. We'd already kind of decided we wanted to move back, and she even had a couple houses to look at. Not that we were planning actually to buy these houses, just to kind of see what the market was like. Yeah. And she stopped in the front door of the Enterprise, and Kathy Moore, my old boss, said, "Oh, there's an editor opening. Peter should apply." And a month later, we were back. We'd bought our first house, and it was completely overwhelming, but kind of great.
What was it like being an editor over the past 15 plus years?
As a reporter, I didn't want to be an editor. I just wanted to do the news. But I also did care about all the aspects. I was curious about all the aspects of a newspaper and all the other parts, how it looks on the page and how it gets there. And I didn't want, if I spent a lot of time on a story, I didn't want it to end up on page 3 with no photos. I wanted it to be presented the way I thought I was picturing it in my head as I was writing it. And so you get to plan that out, and you get to work with people and coordinate with a team. And that was great. I really loved the community aspect of it. I wasn't interested really in doing it on a big city scale. I was interested in doing it where you know the people.
What have been some of your proudest accomplishments?
I think overall, when I was a reporter and then when I started as editor, the reporters were more structured. They were a lot of board meetings, and it was kind of like sports. You cover the game. The games are scheduled. You know when all the games are. That's your week. You cover those games. It was like that with meetings and then press conferences and events. Things would be scheduled. And a lot of the news happens outside of a schedule. And I kind of broke that up intentionally, trying to pull back a little bit and look at the news in a bit more of a way that the readers would. Because the readers aren't necessarily going from one board meeting to the next the way reporters are. They're seeing things that are happening. When a sports reporter left at one point, we replaced that person with half sports and half outdoors. And that position isn't there anymore at the Enterprise. Unfortunately, lost that about a year and a half ago. But that was the outdoors beat, was a real beat. And people hadn't really conceived it as that before.
A lot of issues in the Adirondacks.
Parking, trailheads,
yeah, exactly.
and hiking impacts, and it becomes a tourism issue because there's so many people coming up now, and there's a lot. That's one thing. We covered the Olympics. We had done that once before I was there in 2002 while I was a reporter. Lou, our sports writer, went to the Salt Lake City Olympics.
Jimmy Shea was
Jimmy
of course,
Shea. Lou was there, covered that firsthand, and so I wanted to do that again. And I started in 2004 as editor, and we didn't, it was too late at that point really to gear up for 2006. But I decided 2010 we're going to do this, and we did. And in fact, it was Lou and me at those games covering as reporters. And that year we also had about a dozen local Olympians. As a reporter, that was probably my highlight. And that time I was editor of the paper, but I was covering them as a reporter. That was the biggest thing I covered. It was exciting.
The newspaper business really has gone through a lot of changes. You alluded to this a little bit in the years you've been editor. A lot of readers are now getting their news online and on social media. Those changes, has that been tough as an editor of a small daily newspaper?
The Enterprise held out a lot longer than most. Those, specifically on the staff cuts, it really hit a lot of other papers much sooner than us. Some of them it hit right after the recession in 2008. And then, over the 12 years or so after that, 13 years, lots of them had reductions, and we really didn't. It didn't really start until about a year and a half ago, and only a little bit, and then the pandemic.
Did you take on the additional editing responsibilities for the website and for social media?
We always did. I mean, sometimes what I saw over the years was that more newspapers were becoming more like the Enterprise always had been. The Enterprise was always as small a daily as you could pretty much get. And so I would see other newspapers becoming more like the Enterprise, where the editors were also having to lay out some pages and having to deal with the email and having to deal with maybe the calendar items and having to deal with the letters to the editor and things that at a bigger paper there are people to do different jobs. And when the staff gets smaller, you just take on more.
Did they factor into your decision that now is the time to leave?
I'd be lying if I said they didn't. I mean, they do. But I was leaving. I did leave primarily for something I wanted. Not because I was chased out of it or because I didn't recognize the job anymore, any of that kind of thing. I got burned out. That's true. But there was also something that I wanted, that I felt called to do. It wasn't just a wanted to do it. Sometimes you just know.
So you're heading off to Potsdam State in the fall.
That's right, yeah.
And to get your master's in teaching.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, high school, English, that's what I'm hoping for. Maybe middle school, we'll see how it goes. The degree is for grades 7 to 12. So.
And is that something your parents did?
My dad taught college, but a lot of freshman composition courses. My mom taught high school French. So they were both teachers, and I didn't want to be a teacher, but then partway through college I kind of said, oh, all right, I guess, fine. And so, but now I'm ready. Now I'm excited by it in a way that I never was even in college.
We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much.